Number 10. Unheard song covers. Over her career, Tina Turner has written and performed dozens of original songs that are still popular to this day. Much like a large portion of musicians back in the day though, she took time to perform covers of songs from other artists. She performed a rendition of Let's Dance with David Bowie, covered Elton John's The Snitch Is Back, and several others over the years. Tina retired from performing in the early 2010s, and since then there's been a massive slew of successful songs that the artists totally should have covered. What would Tina Turner's version of Poker Face have sounded like? Did she ever want to do a cover of Uptown Funk with Bruno Mars? There will never be a Land Down Under What's Love Got to Do With It mashup. We have to imagine that Tina was keeping track of current music trends, and she almost certainly kept like a little book of names of people that she wanted to collaborate with. I think we can all agree the Afterlife is going to have an epic playlist going 24/7. Number 9. Tina Turner toys. In 2021, Tina Turner was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame again, this time as an individual though, as she was previously inducted into the hall alongside of her former husband and musical partner Ike Turner. Another honor came that year though in the creation of Tina's very own Barbie doll. The doll boasts Tina's iconic hairstyle as well as her on-point fashion sense. This doll looks like it's going to burst into song and kick the night away, but we can only imagine that this wasn't the first time she tried to capitalize on her fame with a toy. Throughout the 1970s and 80s, I was not alive yet, but I did grow up with a lot of the toys from that era. If it was on TV or in the mainstream, it seemed to have some kind of product to go along with it. With Tina's career kicking off strong around the early 70s, it would have made perfect sense for her record company to release Tina Turner dolls, or some kind of like a sing-along kit. For all we know, those products were pitched, but met with negative results. And now we'll never know if somewhere out there sits a prototype for a Tina Turner talking teddy. I'm writing that down, that's good. Number 8. Smart shopper. In her youth, Tina found a home at Club Manhattan, a music venue in Tennessee. It was there that she met rock and roll pioneer and future ex-husband Ike Turner. Ike and Tina were together for a very long time, and as we know now, their relationship was filled with physical altercations, mental and control. By the mid-1970s, they had finally split after an altercation in Dallas broke Tina's limits. Following their split, Tina began giving her solo career a shot. Despite the success of her time on stage with Ike, she was left with next to nothing following the divorce. In her HBO documentary, she tells the audience that when Ike left, she had 36 cents in her pocket and a gas station credit card. To care for her children and put food on the table, Tina would collect food stamps and even clean houses. As someone who's witnessed the work of a single mother firsthand, seriously, my sister is a rock star, they tend to get pretty good at smart shopping. In 1983, Turner's solo career turned around after gaining some traction following the release of her cover of Al Green's Let's Stay Together, which soared to the top 5 R&B charts in the States and in the UK. This means that between 1976 and 1983, Tina was making life work, and we can only imagine the tips and tricks she must have learned over the years to make life as a single mama a second-hand emotion. I assume that means easy. I don't know for sure. It sounds good. Number 7. Her vocal warm-ups. There are two things we can agree on in this world. Number 1, the moon is actually a government satellite, and number 2, Tina Turner has an incredible voice. Tina has been serenading our eardrums since taking her first breath into the microphone when she started singing at her local church in Nutbush, Tennessee. That is a rough name for a town. Her voice is always on point, but she never actually shared her warm-up routine with anybody. With such a powerful voice at your disposal, the process of prepping it for hours of usage must be intense. As a theater kid, I know for a fact that vocal warm-ups are essential to a clear and concise performance. I also know that you shouldn't eat dairy before a big show, but they still gave us pizza before everything when we went on, so who knows. We wish we could have learned what she did to prep such an iconic voice. Was there tea involved, or was it more like Sharpay in High School Musical, you know? Never know. Number 6. Skincare routine. Tina was taken from us at the age of 83 after spending over 50 years on stage. Now, most musicians begin to show their age after only a few years of touring, but Tina's skin stood still. Up until the day she passed, Tina was a beautiful woman. Somehow at the age of 83, she looked like she was a slightly older version of her 40-year-old self. If there is one thing we wish was revealed in her HBO documentary Tina, it would be her beauty secrets. Not only is Tina herself famous and beautiful, but her legs are considered their own separate being. She famously kicks and swings so much during her shows that we're convinced her legs have a mind and personality of their own. Even in her 80s, we're sure Tina was kicking and singing all the way to the the end, but seriously, how did you look so good for that long? Number 5. Missed film opportunities. In case you weren't aware, there was a little film franchise back in the day starring Mel Gibson called Mad Max. He played the titular Max as we followed his journey through a desert wasteland where gas is the only currency we care about. In the franchise's third installment, Tina Turner was cast to act alongside Mel as Auntie Entity. Not only did she deliver a solid performance for her first real acting gig, but she also dropped a killer song for the flick called We Don't Need Another Hero. Her appearance on screen was a fun surprise for Mad Max fans, but it left us craving more. We have to imagine that she received other offers over the years for film roles, but what? When? Why? The idea of Tina Turner having a career on the big screen isn't outside of the realm of possibility, as historically musicians have been able to make similar moves with positive receptions. Post Malone is famous for his music, but did you know that he's been acting lately and he's doing like a really good job at it? Mark Wahlberg started out as a rapper named Mackie Mac, and now he's in the Transformers universe. And Ice Cube made a trilogy of successful comedies in the Friday franchise. The examples are endless, and there are so many iconic characters that Tina could have played over the years. Just imagine if Tina had popped up in a Marvel movie, our minds would have been blown! Number 4. Substance use. Tina's ex-husband, Ike, was an absolutely horrible human being. Throughout his entire relationship to Tina, Ike was being aggressive and physical behind the scenes. While the couple seemed to be happy together on stage, the reality was Tina hated being with him and he controlled most of her early career. So much so that the name Tina Turner was actually trademarked by Ike as another form of control. Over the years, details have surfaced about Ike's long history with substances and no-no juice, and they're hard to hear. Thankfully, Tina got out of that marriage and Ike was sentenced to prison for 18 months for possessing no-no snow. In fact, he was serving that sentence when himself and Tina were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1991. While Tina was able to get free of Ike's clutches, the reality is she was stuck with a terrible man for a long time, and famously that has led people to do terrible things to cope with the stress or anxiety. Tina talked about a truly dark time in her life and mental health in her documentary, where she attempted to end her own life following the revelation that Ike was cheating on her with multiple women. But this is just one instance that we know of. Tina didn't talk about Ike much, so the idea that she may have had more stories to share is likely, but unfortunately we will never know for sure. Number 3. An affair. In the HBO documentary about her life, Tina discusses the topic of infidelity and loyalty along with the specifics of her relationship with Ike Turner. As we know now, Ike was cheating on Tina with several women throughout their relationship, but it appears that Tina herself may have had some extramarital affairs as well. During the documentary, Tina mentioned that she has not had one love affair that was genuine and long-lasting. Okay, hold up, does that mean that she did have affairs, they just weren't with anyone that she loved? It would make sense that Tina would seek love from another man, considering just how cruel and abrasive Ike really was. While there's never been a confirmation of Tina's infidelity, the way she talks about her love life in reference to loveless affairs makes us think that she's had some secret lovers in the past, and we'll never know. Well, not lovers, more like acquaintances, according to her. Number 2. Ancient wisdom. Tina spent the majority of her youth singing in church choirs and at local music venues. As she got older, she only grew more and more talented, and apparently her religious views grew as well. Towards the end of her life, Tina adhered to the teachings of the Soka Gakkai International, the largest Buddhist organization in the world, consisting of about 12 million practitioners. They exist under the belief that peace of the land depends on transforming the heart and mind of one individual at a time. Tina spent a long time living in this lifestyle as she was introduced to the concept by a friend in the 1970s. Tina found a lot of peace in her meditation sessions. But did she also find the answers to the universe? Tina had been through so much in her life, romantically, emotionally, family-wise, yet somehow she not only remained positive, but she was eventually able to forgive those who caused her harm in the past. The calm and comforting manner in which Tina existed makes us think that during those meditation sessions, some kind of door was unlocked in her mind, allowing her to release all the problems in her life and move on. I want that. Can I have that, please? Number 1. Tried to have Ike taken out. Phil Spector was one of the most prolific record producers of the early 1960s. He quickly recognized the potential in Tina, but noticed there were some outside issues holding her back. Specifically, her boy toy Ike was kind of a Phil knew about the rocky relationship and set a plan in motion to have Ike dealt with. In the documentary Tina, it was revealed that Phil once paid someone to distract Ike while Tina was in studio sessions to just get him out of the room and allow Tina to do her thing without the stress and pressure of Ike being right there. While the doc confirmed this one story, Spector was a man who had friends in high places. If he wanted someone taken care of, it was gonna happen. Maybe he hired this person to get a feel for Ike before deciding if he really needed to take him out for good. Tina worked with Spector on her career milestone collaboration, River Deep Mountain High, and while at first it was a major flop, it went on to be one of the most iconic songs she's ever performed. Look at that. Take a person you hate out of the equation and there's nowhere to go but up.
Starting off our list today in the number 10 spot, we have Cancer. After Jerry Springer's family shared that the daytime host passed away earlier Thursday morning, following a brief illness, People magazine would then publish a report, and in it, they would say Springer's passing came from the result of battling cancer. With a family spokesperson and longtime friend Gene Galvin also telling NBC News that Jerry passed away from pancreatic cancer, Jerry's longtime friend and religious leader, Rabbi Sandrod Kobnik of the Valley and Temple in Cincinnati, also told People magazine that Jerry's illness was sudden, when he said he hasn't been sick for a long time, he passed away from cancer, and he didn't have cancer for very long. After describing the former Cincinnati mayor's nature, Kobnik also went on to note that Jerry had a kind and generous personality, and he wasn't really best pictured in his show when he said there was so much more to him than the Jerry Springer Show. He was very, very smart. He was a remarkable family man, and he was somebody who understood what it means to pay it forward. With Springer being known for hosting 27 seasons of his talk show, he also headlined the reality series Judge Jerry for 3 seasons and even briefly served as a judge on America's Got Talent. He also was the 56th mayor of Cincinnati in the 1970s, before pursuing a career in media. Being a man who never really lost sight of his roots, he understood the great fortune that his family had escaping Germany, and he will be deeply missed by millions of people all over the world. Number 9. Love for hateful groups. It seems like the only people who get more airtime on the Springer Show than jilted lovers seem to be the members of certain Malaysia groups, and none of us could really understand why. Maybe it's because Jerry wanted to use his platform to help the members of these so-called audiences feel better about themselves. Or maybe he just had a deep love and understanding for the people he brought on the show. But after the second instance of the show giving the people the attention they were so clearly craving, everyone involved in the incident really should have found themselves giving the boot from the show. These episodes would cause so much drama that an altercation in one episode even broke out after the group members walked on to the stage. It should have been enough for the show's creators to realize that these conversations just weren't okay and they needed to cancel the show. Hateful groups like this don't just appear on talk shows, so the fact that Jerry had extended his privilege to bring them on the show and make them feel welcome really made a lot of people question what his real motives were and why he was so obsessed with interviewing people from Malaysia groups. Hey BTS fans, are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel so you never have to miss out on what I might just cover next. And seriously, let me tell you, the next videos have some major tea, so you definitely don't want to miss out on them. Number 8. Scandalous Life. Back in 1982, Jerry Springer decided to try to take his political career to the next level by running for governor of Ohio. Unfortunately for the star, his campaign was plagued by a major scandal in which he was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a woman on the streets during his younger years. To his credit, Jerry did own up to the accusations and apologized for the mistake, and he then went on to argue that acknowledging the truth and embracing the matter was a sign of his honesty and maturity, demonstrating that he was still fit to run for office, as this didn't reflect on the leader he could be. As bold as his attempt was at altering the message on this matter, it still wasn't enough to sway the voters of Ohio, and he ultimately lost the race and never made an attempt to run again. Number 7. The Game Plan. Have you ever wondered why Jerry Springer's guests on his show always managed to get in such dramatic altercations? Well, if so, then you may or may not be surprised to learn that it's more than just a mere coincidence. It seems like right from the show's inception, Springer made a conscious decision to ensure that there was always going to be some kind of explosive battle in every episode to avoid the show becoming just like another talk show. Even if you thought the show's unique platform for crazy spectacles might just be viewed by some as an opportunity to lie for the sake of getting attention, you would be right. Well, at least you would be in one case, when 3 individuals who appeared on the show admitted they have completely fabricated their stories about about a continuous love triangle just to get on TV. I guess it's true when they say in Hollywood you really do have to fake it till you make it. Number 6. Banned in the UK. Being a celebrity can come with a heavy price, especially when your show has been known to cross some boundaries. Every year a handful of celebrities will either find themselves being banned from going to certain countries, or they will have their shows making a ban list, which many celebrities just honestly look away and carry on with their days. But this move can really affect your career, especially when angry parents find out that their kids are watching your show. So in the early 2000s, the United Kingdom made the decision to ban the Jerry Springer Show from being shown during the daytime on any school holiday. The ban would come after an excessive number of parents complained that they did not want their children exposed to the show's subject matter, which is honestly a fair statement. I don't know if you did this or not, but I used to skip school and pretended I was sick just so I could watch Jerry say "You are not the father" and watch an epic altercation occur on the stage. If my parents knew that I was doing that, they probably wouldn't be so happy. But honestly, the show was wild, but maybe that's why we laughed so hard when it came to it. Number 5. End of the line. To this day, many people have never noticed that the production of the Jerry Springer Show was actually quietly cancelled in 2018. And if you did notice, then you know no one really said anything to why the show was being cancelled. Now I can only imagine that the show's controversial segments were finally met with cancel culture, as a show like Jerry's could never really enter into the television world today because, let's face it, the American Pie days are now over. It also could be because this is when he was diagnosed with cancer and decided he would be leaving the show behind to spend the last moments with his family. Although everyone involved with the show chose not to publicly announce the development or make a big issue out of it in the media, the show would eventually confirm that there would be no new episodes going forward and that they would just be playing reruns and previously unaired stories going forward. And now when we see his show pop up in air, we're really going to remember all the things he brought to American television. And seriously, we're really going to miss Jerry, as we already miss him already. Number 4. Daughter. Although Jerry Springer's on-screen life consisted mostly of being entertained by the shenanigans of others, his off-screen life isn't all fun and games. One of the biggest struggles in the host's personal life is that he had found it hard to take care of his daughter Katie, as she has some severe physical disabilities. As for Katie's entire life, she has been both deaf and blind. Despite having a difficult challenge ahead of him, Jerry and his wife have always devoted themselves in every possible way to taking care of their daughter, by allowing her to live her life the fullest. And they never were the ones to allow anything to affect this or allow their daughter's disabilities to hold her back from achieving anything she wanted to achieve. With Katie being Jerry's inspiration, she even once convinced her father to compete on Dancing with the Stars, where he placed 5th, and the two had such a close bond, to the point Jerry kept Katie's disability a secret from the world most of the time because he didn't want people to treat her any differently. She even made Jerry a loving grandfather after she got married and had a child. Number 3. Film industry. Jerry has many careers in his life, from being a mayor to a talk show host, but did you know he even ventured into the film industry at one point in his career? And the colossal flop Ringmaster was not Jerry's only foot into the film industry, as in 1999 Jerry even got the chance to play a fictionalized version of himself in a fictionalized version of his show in the classic comedy film Austin Powers' The Spy Who Shagged Me. Naturally, the fictionalized version of The Springer Show was actually pretty close to the real thing, with the movie showing 2 characters getting into one giant altercation on the not Springer Show. It totally ended up being The Springer Show, but I mean, how could you not make a fake Jerry Springer Show and not have it resemble the real thing? Because if you didn't, it would probably confuse a lot of people. But at the same time, this is when we realized that if a movie was able to convince us that we were actually watching the Jerry Springer Show, then maybe, just maybe, the show was all staged. But I'm gonna let you decide that and let me know in the comments below. Number 2. Burden. With Jerry Springer and his family choosing to keep the star's battle with cancer hidden from the public, so his health struggles wouldn't become a burden to many of those who cared so deeply about him, TMZ would soon publish an article where they would claim that Jean Galvin, a rep for the Springer family, told them that Jerry was sick for months and that he was running through a series of tests but only recently found out how serious his pancreatic cancer diagnosis actually was. Galvin also told the media outlet that Jerry has always been fairly a private private person. So he and his family thought it was especially important to keep his cancer private, as they didn't want people to worry about him or his family. So Jerry and his family instead shifted their entire focus on aiding with his care, which became extremely time consuming, and Jerry knew that his time was limited, and given the severity of his cancer, he made a point to spend as much time as he could with his loved ones as possible. And during this time, he found things really depressing because he didn't want to be a burden to his friends and family, with some friends having no idea that Jerry was sick. And then he went on to do small little things, and his friends say that this is how he was giving them one final goodbye. Coming at number 1 today, we have The Show. Despite how drama-filled the show was, it definitely wasn't everyone's favorite cup of tea. And out of everyone in the world, you would never probably expect that Jerry Springer was actually one of those people. I know, it's a surprise, because he always looked like he was so into everything happening during the filming process that he would be watching certain moments back to back. But I guess that just wasn't the case. Believe it or not, Jerry Springer one time actually even confessed that he never even watches the show himself. While the confession isn't really known by many, he once really did come out to say he's fully aware of how silly and ridiculous his show's subject matter was, and at the end of the day, he only considers his job to be nothing more than a job. But hey, he made a pretty big paycheck doing so can we really blame him for wanting to do ridiculous things to bring in more views? With Jerry leaving the world so unexpectedly, many viewers, fans, family, and friends have flooded to different social media outlets to share their favorite stories of Jerry and how he helped them get through some rough times in their lives. With Jerry filling our hearts with so much love and laughter for decades, it's really sad to hear that he's gone, and I seriously don't want to live in a world without him. Starting off our list today in the number 10 spot, we have unpaid debts to unknown people. On April 20th, TMZ posted a pretty alarming article that pretty much hinted that there may have been foul play when it comes to Aaron Carter's tragic passing, with Aaron's fiancée Melanie Martin speaking out about the results of his passing. She would say that they have not brought her closure, as she still has a lot of questions, as when the star passed away, he was found wearing a t-shirt and a necklace in a tub, which doesn't make any sense, as why would he be in a bathtub with his clothes on? While Melanie continues to speak to TMZ, she went on to note she was thinking about having everything re-examined for a second time because she believes Aaron would not want no stone unturned. With Melanie previously telling publications that there had been text exchanges on Aaron's phone between him and an unknown person for an $800 bill, Aaron's mother has also urged the police to open a more thorough investigation into her son's passing, as there could be foul play involved. And police have not investigated it as a possible crime scene because of his addiction. While speculation still seems to surround the moments prior to Aaron's passing, it's not hard to see that there's something strange going on, and it makes you wonder what Hollywood might be trying to cover up. Number 9. Substance abuse. When Aaron Carter's mental health started to spiral out of control in his early 20s, his struggles with anxiety and depression led to a dangerous addiction. When Aaron sat down with Entertainment Tonight, he told the outlet that when he was doing Dancing with the Stars in 2009, he developed an addiction to medication because of his stage fright. Later, he would confess on Where Are They Now with Oprah that his depression was brought on because he loved his family being together and he didn't want to see his parents get divorced. He felt like he couldn't dwell on it. Eventually, all the stress caused the singer to begin to self-medicate, and in addition to the medication, he also started to drink really heavily. At this point in his life, he also began to tell people around him that he was on a bad path and that he needed help. He even told Oprah, "So I called my mother and I called my brother, and my mother came and picked me up and took me to her house. The next day, I was at the Betty Ford Center." He completed the 1-month program in 2011, and in 2016, Aaron opened up about life after treatment when he admitted that he wasn't going to abuse things anymore and he was just going to do life his own way. Hey friends, what's up? Are you liking this video so far? If so, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so you never have to miss out on what we might just cover next. Number 8. Chilling prediction. After Aaron checked into rehab in September 2017, he sat down for an interview with US Weekly, and in the interview, the star would make a chilling prediction, with Aaron eerily revealing that when he was growing up, he didn't think he was ever ever going to make it that far when he said, "I thought I would pass away by 30. Even when I was 13, 14, I thought, oh my god, I'm going to pass away." When reflecting on his stardom 21 years earlier, he would admit to the media outlet that his life had been pretty tough for him, as he had to deal with a lot of trauma, a lot of loss, loneliness, and he felt like he just needed to get away from everything. At the time of the interview, he was also checking himself into rehab for one of multiple times. He would then go on to explain that he had been burnt, but his goal was to be a phoenix that rises from the ashes, before adding that he was shocked that he was actually turning 30. Number 7, the engagement. Aaron Carter's engagement to Carrie Ann Pench was as fleeting as it was random. And according to People, when Aaron was just 18 years old, this is when he popped the question in front of an audience of 200 people on stage for a comedy tour in Las Vegas back in 2006. Carrie, who was 22 at the time, had previously dated Aaron's older brother Nick Carter. Surprisingly, she said yes. Then 6 days later, Aaron called off the engagement, which would then have Carrie reach out to media outlets to say he's really young and he just needs to get his act together. I don't know what's going on right now. We're friends and maybe we'll get back together sometime. We haven't ruled out getting back together. Aaron then later opened up about the brief affair on E! News when he said, "I made a mistake and she made a mistake too. So we both did. I was by myself and all of a sudden someone threw it out as a joke and I said, okay, whatever, I'll do it." And I did it on impulse. So it really makes us question, was this just a really short relationship or was it a publicity stunt? Number 6, chronic health problems. When Aaron Carter's fans started to freak out due to the singer looking relatively skinny due to his chronic health problems in 2015, Aaron went into defense mode during a Twitter rant when he started blaming his weight loss on his anxiety after cyberbullies started to accuse the singer of using hardcore narcotics. In his tweet, he would say, "The way people talk about my weight is like high school times a million. Just so we are very clear, I don't do substances." Later, Nicki Swift would even report that Aaron broke down discussing the effects of his conditions in July of 2017 when he said, "Unless you're in my body, you don't know. I'm sorry for the way I look. I weigh 135, 140, and I'm 5'8". Doctors said to avoid stress because I can develop cancer. He also went on to admit that he found it really hard to look in the mirror sometimes and that it hurt so bad because there was nothing he could do about it. Number 5, struggle to come out. In August of 2017, Aaron Carter came out on Twitter to confirm his sexuality with his fans. In the tweet, Aaron came out to say, "This doesn't bring me shame, just weight and burden I have held onto for a long time that I would like lifted off of me. There were years that went by that I thought about it, but it wasn't until I was 17 years old. After a few relationships with girls, I had an experience with a male that I had an attraction to, who I also worked with and grew up with. Sadly, Madison Parker did not feel the same way, and the two would then call it quits." Later, Aaron would make an appearance on The Burt Show to discuss everything that happened with his split with Madison, go on to say, "I had to discuss being bisexual with my ex-girlfriend, and she didn't really understand it. She didn't want to, and that was it, so we left it mutual and we parted ways." Before going on to note that he's been thinking about everything for years, and he felt like it was really important to come out at this time and say everything he was hiding, as he was starting a new chapter of his life, and he was really looking forward to the future and was excited to find whether he was going to be with a man or a woman. Number 4, the restraining order. Being so close at a young age, no one thought Aaron and Nick Carter's relationship would ever change. But things definitely, somewhere along the line, took a dark turn for the stars in 2019 after Nick took out a restraining order against his little brother. After Aaron unleashed a series of angry tweets and since deleted tweets against his older brother, Nick would clearly air on Twitter with a shocking revelation when he said, "After careful consideration, my sister Angel and I regret that we were required to seek a restraining order against our brother Aaron today. In the lights of Aaron's increasingly alarming behavior and his recent confession that he harbors dark thoughts, we were left with no choice but to take every measure possible to protect ourselves and our family. We love our brother and truly hope he gets the proper treatment he needs before any harm comes to himself or anyone else." Aaron clearly didn't take too well to his family's tweets, to say at least, and he immediately replied to the snub with his own message saying, "I haven't seen him in 4 years and I don't intend to. Take care, Nick Carter. We're done for life. Number 3, bankruptcy. Back in 2013, Aaron Carter started to make headlines after he filed for bankruptcy, with his publicist telling CNN at the time it wasn't a negative thing and it was more of a positive thing, as the star was doing everything he could to move forward from the bulk of debt he was facing due to the fact he lost a massive amount of money when he wasn't in control of his own finances. The singer then went on to clarify why he filed for bankruptcy when he said, "There was a lot of neglect on my parents' part. They didn't do things right. Under the Coogan law, my parents were supposed to be putting 15% of my money into my Coogan account. I got $2 million when I turned 18 years old. I should have had at least $20 million in my account." And at the time, this is also when Aaron realized he owed around $4 million in taxes. While Aaron definitely didn't hold any grudges towards anyone for his financial situation, he also went on to tell GQ, "I don't want people thinking my parents broke child labor laws. So I was like, I can handle this. I love my mom and dad, and they are responsible for giving me my career, and I still have one today. So I'll file for bankruptcy, and I'll pay 25 cents on the dollar for every cent I pay back." Number 2, the feud. Even with there being 8 years between them, Nick and Aaron actually used to make quite an adorable team, but they weren't exactly always as thick as thieves. When fans first caught a glimpse of their rocky relationship when a heated argument between the two ended in a fistfight on their 2006 reality show, House of Carters, and in July 2017, their estrangement took another hit when Aaron got arrested for driving under the influence. Although Nick tweeted out to support his brother, Aaron would then go on to accuse him of not really being genuine, as he decided to bring up the conversation on a public forum. As of 2019, the brothers were still on outs, and not only did Nick have a restraining order on his little brother, but Aaron also called out his brother and pretty much insinuated that Nick's charges had truth to them, and if things couldn't get worse, Aaron also stated that Nick was capable of harming him when he went on to say, "I'm so scared that something is going to happen to me. I endured so much abuse from Nick, and I don't know what he's capable of. If something happens, I let God lead the way, and he is with me." And coming in number 1 today, we have the rocky relationship with mom. Aaron Carter's mom, Jane Carter, devoted her life to building her talented sons' careers. But her momager tendencies even put Kris Jenner to shame. In the family's 2005 20 out of 20 special, she would say, "I sacrificed my whole entire life for that child and for the other child for the sake of that family. I made sacrifices every day. I was willing to do it for them, for the family." But the Carter kids lost their mom in the process. And it even had Aaron admit all he ever wanted was for his mom to love him and to just be his mom. Aaron's dad, Bob Carter, then went on to explain when Nick grew up, Aaron became the cash cow, and all mom loved at the time was the person bringing in the money. To make matters even worse, Jane also went on to write a tell-all book about her sons and how she allegedly stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from their fortunes. Aaron would then later come out to discuss everything that happened when he said, "Every show we did, we'd probably make about $40,000, $50,000 a show, and it was all gone." Fame and fortune then went on to cost Jane her family, and she would even admit, "It taught me a really big lesson, that all material things in the world are not important compared to the amount of time that you can spend with your children."
At number 10, Rock Hudson. Imagine taking one of the biggest secrets about who you really are to your grave. That's essentially what happened with famed Hollywood actor Rock Hudson. Rock was one of the hottest leading males in Hollywood in his heyday, but he lived with a huge secret for his whole life, and people didn't end up finding out about it until after his passing. When Rock passed away in 1985, it was revealed that he had died from AIDS. He became one of the first and most famous Hollywood celebrities to pass away from the illness. Because the illness was so heavily associated with being gay, speculation began to float around saying that Rock had been hiding his sexuality from the public this whole time. This all turned out to be 100% true, as friends and family of Rock confirmed what the public had been thinking in a biography on the actor. In the book, it was revealed that he had an ex-boyfriend named Lee Garlington, and he was described as Rock's true love. Rock's secret was really only known by his closest friends and family and an inner circle of Hollywood, and a lot of them fought to keep his sexuality a secret in order to preserve his career. I couldn't imagine how tough it would be to have to keep such a big part of who you are a secret from the world. At number 9, David Cassidy. Oftentimes we try our best to be open and honest with our struggles in life, but for some it's hard to share some of the things that you might not be too proud of. This is what caused actor David Cassidy to keep a pretty big secret from the public that wasn't actually revealed until after he passed away. Before he passed away, David shared with the public his struggles with dementia. Fans believed that the actor was suffering from the disease, and so when news broke of his death, people just assumed that it was the dementia that ultimately took him. But it wasn't until the documentary about the actor called David Cassidy, The Last Session, came out that the public learned the truth about David's health. It turned out that the actor was never actually diagnosed with dementia, and that this wasn't what was harming his health. Instead, it was alcohol poisoning that he was struggling with, and that ultimately took his life. In the documentary, the actor admitted to everything, saying, quote, "There is no sign of me having dementia at this stage in my life. It was complete alcohol poisoning, and the fact is, I lied about my drinking." End quote. One of the documentary's producers spoke out about having known about the actor's struggles before the public, where they said, quote, "We didn't want to exploit him, but ultimately he was honest about what killed him, and we decided that his legacy would be best served if we shared that." End quote. Before we carry on talking about some of the juiciest celebrity secrets, why not take a brief moment to leave a like on this video if you're enjoying it so far, and while you're at it, why not subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this one. At number 8, Gene Wilder. When someone is diagnosed with a serious illness, it becomes a very tough and very personal decision of whether or not to tell people about it. I know people who chose to keep their illness a secret until the end, and this is exactly what actor Gene Wilder did. Gene passed away in 2016, but it wasn't until after he died that the public learned about the secret that he was keeping in regards to his health. It turned out that the actor had been battling Alzheimer's for over 3 years before he passed away. After learning this, a lot of people wanted to know why this news was kept secret from the public, and the reason behind it is so touching. Gene didn't reveal his condition to the public because he wanted people to remember him as he was, and not someone who was sick. He wanted to keep the smiles on the faces of his fans. In a statement released by Gene's family, they elaborated on the situation, saying, quote, "The decision to wait until this time to disclose his condition wasn't vanity, but more so that the countless young children that would smile or call out to him, 'There's Willy Wonka,' would not have to be then exposed to an adult referencing illness or trouble and causing delight to travel to worry, disappointment, or confusion. He simply couldn't bear the idea of one less smile in the world." End quote. At number 7, Corey Haim. Unfortunately, as much as there's glitz and glam in Hollywood, there's also a dark side, one of those dark sides being harming and manipulating others. This is sadly something that actor Corey Haim experienced as a child actor in Hollywood. Both he and his best friend Corey Feldman experienced the dark side of Hollywood, and though Feldman has been pretty outspoken about what he endured, Haim on the other hand kept that top secret. The one thing that he kept absolutely hidden was the identity of the person who seriously harmed him. Haim went to the grave knowing the identity of the person who harmed him, but this secret isn't completely lost, as it's alleged that Corey Feldman actually knows who did it. Feldman tried in the past to get his friend to expose the person who caused him so much pain, but Haim refused because he was so scared that this individual would try and hurt them again. Haim made Corey promise that he would share the story of what happened to them if he died, and Corey did share some details, but again, the identity of the person who hurt Corey Haim remains a secret. At number 6, Sally Ride. Up next, we have another celebrity who unfortunately didn't get to live their life as open as they should have been able to, as they went to the grave with a huge secret. Astronaut Sally Ride was the first American woman to go to space. She became widely known for her presence in the NASA community, promoting education and interest in space, and specifically devoted much of her life to helping girls excel in STEM. She did a lot for her community, especially women and young girls, but there was another community that she was a part of that no one really knew about until after she passed away. When Sally passed away in 2012, her title grew to not only be the first American woman to go to space, but also the first astronaut to be acknowledged as gay. Sally's sexuality was never public knowledge until her obituary named a woman named Tan O'Shaughnessy as her partner of 27 years. At number 5, Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston's personal life was often a hot topic in the media during her life. People were obsessed with what went on behind closed doors, the good and the bad. Though a lot of her personal life was exposed, one thing that remained a secret until her tragic passing was a horrible incident that she had endured when she was younger. After some digging and a published documentary, the world learned that Whitney was once a victim of inappropriate contact. After the singer passed away, her former assistant told the documentary team that Whitney had once confided in her to tell tell her about what she had endured when she was younger. The assistant told cameras, quote, "Whitney looked at me and said, 'Mary, I was harmed at a young age too, but it wasn't by a man, it was a woman.' She had tears in her eyes. She says, 'Mommy doesn't know the things that we went through.'" End quote. Though she never spoke publicly about what happened to her, it is believed that Whitney once hinted at it in an interview when she got really emotional when talking about adults taking advantage of children. At number 4, George Michael. Imagine being portrayed negatively in the media for basically your whole career just for the narrative to make a 180 after your passing. This is the case with singer George Michael and how his public image changed after he passed away. During his career, George was seen as scandalous and the media really dug into this while he was alive, but after he passed away in 2016, the truth about who George Michael really was came out, and it was a very different narrative. He took the secret of his philanthropy to his grave, but many people wish that he was around to be appreciated for giving back to the people. The public came to learn that the singer made many large donations to a wide array of charities like cancer support groups and the Terrence Higgins Trust, which is an HIV awareness group. He kept all of his donations a secret and made sure that no one receiving these donations knew that he was behind it. He was a secret angel giving back to people without receiving any credit, which just shows that this help was genuine, not just for good press. At number 3, Prince. Another celebrity who was something of a secret angel of sorts was Prince. After he passed away in 2016, secrets about the singer started to come out, some of those secrets being about his philanthropy. One person, an environmentalist who worked for the Green Jobs Act, came forward to talk about one of the donations that they had once received anonymously from Prince, where they said that they received a check for $50,000. At first, they sent the check back because it was so out of the blue and they didn't really trust it, but to their surprise, the check came back again, this time with a phone call. The environmentalist then went on to say that the person on the phone said, quote, "I cannot tell you who the money is coming from, but his favorite color is purple." End quote. On top of this anonymous donation, Prince also co-founded an educational effort to help teach minority youths technology called #YesWeCode, and he also made a donation to the family of Trayvon Martin. Speaking out about Prince's philanthropy, his ex-wife said that he never wanted to make these donations public so as to not overshadow the charity or the case. At number 2, Anthony Perkins. Known for his role as Norman Bates in the Hitchcock film Psycho, actor Anthony Perkins lived a pretty quiet and private life, but he also took a very big secret to his grave. When news broke of his passing in 1992, it came as a sudden shock to people. But what the public didn't know at the time was that Anthony had been secretly battling a serious illness that he kept from the public. For 2 years before his passing, the actor had been secretly receiving treatment for AIDS. Speaking out about her husband's treatment, Anthony's wife told sources, quote, "He went twice to stay at a hospital and once as an outpatient, and we went under another name. You think that this man has spent his entire life giving people so much pleasure in show business, and this is his reward. He can't even be himself at the end." End quote. Anthony knew that when the public found out about his condition after his passing, there would be a lot of questions as to why he never publicly revealed his condition, and so before he died, he wrote a statement to be read once he passed on. In the statement, the actor wrote, quote, "I chose not to go public about having AIDS because, to misquote Casablanca, I'm not much at being noble, but it doesn't take much to see that the problems of one old actor doesn't amount to a hill of beans in this crazy world." End quote. And finally, at number 1, Billy Tipton. Billy Tipton was a famous jazz musician who kept a huge secret from everyone. This secret was so hush-hush that not even his closest friends or family knew. Billy had a pretty solid career in the beginning. The 40s and 50s were Billy's time to shine, rising to fame and taking American jazz by storm. Billy's career started to decline, however, after he declined an offer for a recording contract and to open for Liberace. After that, the musician started to fade out of the spotlight. Over the course of his life, Billy was married 5 times, adopted 3 kids, and was considered to be a real family man. But one day, when Billy suddenly collapsed, his secret was revealed. While paramedics were trying to save him, it was discovered that Billy wasn't biologically male. Like I mentioned before, no one knew. Literally no one, so this came as a shock to everyone. It turns out that Billy dressed as a man in order to be allowed into the world of jazz. Because of this huge secret, Billy was forced to live a pretty private life in order to avoid being caught.
3. And at number 10, Bob Saget. Legendary comedian Bob Saget passed away suddenly on January 9th in a hotel room in Orlando. Immediately after his passing, fans were speculating on how he passed. After some investigation, it was reported that there was no foul play or use of substances, that he most likely just passed away of a heart attack or stroke. But the autopsy has just come back, and we know that he actually died of blunt force trauma to the head, a much different story than what was said before. The night before he died, Saget did a show at a concert hall in Jacksonville, Florida. Then he was found unresponsive in his room at the Ritz-Carlton in Orlando, quote, in a face-upward position on his bed, according to a police report. Police are now saying a fall could be the reason, but other experts are claiming the force used is similar to that of a baseball bat, raising even more questions. As of now, Saget's family is blocking the release of any records pertaining to the case over privacy issues, so it seems we may never know what really happened to cause his death. And at number 9, Naya Rivera. Naya Rivera, best known from the show Glee, shocked the world when it was reported that she had gone missing in a lake in July of 2020. She was out on a boat with her young son, and after many hours on the water, the boat returned with only her son on it. Her child was found asleep on the vessel by a boater that afternoon, alongside Rivera's purse, wallet, and ID, but Naya was nowhere to be found. After searching the lake for days, her body was discovered. The Ventura County Sheriff's Department announced on July 13th that they had recovered her body following an extensive search and recovery effort. Since then, her death has been ruled an accident, but for many fans, the whole thing just seems too strange to be true, and unfortunately we will never know the full story of what happened on the boat that day. And at number 8, Michael Jackson. The king of pop died suddenly at the age of 50 after suffering a cardiac arrest in June of 2009, but there's been so much mystery around his death, it went from being ruled an OD to a homicide. He was found unresponsive in his home, and it was determined that he ingested too much of a substance. After investigation, his personal physician, Dr. Conrad Murray, was charged with manslaughter, with the courts arguing he prescribed Jackson much more than was needed and his prescription caused his death. Years after his passing, allegations of inappropriate conduct from former friends of Jackson's came to light. And ever since, fans have been trying to figure out what really happened between Jackson and the kids he would spend time with at his home. The secrets of what truly happened will now never be uncovered. And at number 7, Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin is known for a lot of things, specifically being one of the founding fathers of the USA, but it seems he was not always faithful to his wife, and he had a mysterious son with another woman. The son, named William Franklin, was clear he was the son of Franklin's, but notoriously mysterious over who his mother was. Some suspect he was born before Ben married Deborah Reed, making him illegitimate. Another theory is that he cheated on his wife with a mistress who ended up getting pregnant. William was involved with his father's business and even became noteworthy in his own right for helping his father in his famous kite experiment. He eventually settled in England to distance himself from the family, and when he passed, he never revealed who his mother was. And at number 6, Kurt Cobain. Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain tragically passed away at the age of 27 in 1994 and is a member of the infamous 27 Club. Law enforcement determined that Cobain took his own life, but there was a lot of inconsistencies in his case that led many to speculate that's not actually how he died. A book was even written blaming the whole thing on Cobain's wife, Courtney Love. The book claims that he died of an OD before being shot by Love. A private detective who was hired determined that Love even tried to pay someone to have them kill Cobain for her. This man claimed he was offered $50,000 and even passed a polygraph proving it. Although Love was never officially charged, she's guilty in the court of public opinion, and many fans are convinced she is responsible, but only Cobain knows the truth. And at number 5, Ludwig van Beethoven. On his deathbed, Beethoven wrote a love letter to the love of his life, although he didn't address it to anyone, so we have no idea who this woman was. When he died in 1827, a letter was left to the Germans' immortal beloved. It was later determined that he wrote the letter years before in 1812. Scholars have tried to speculate who his beloved could be, but there is no clear answer. The most likely choice seems to be Antoine Bertinato. She was close with him, mainly because she was actually married to a good friend of his. Others proposed Josephine Countess von Brunswick as the most likely candidate because he had written her love letters in the past. It was speculated that since she was poor and of low social standing, he was not allowed to be open about his true feelings for her. Since he never told anyone, only he knows the answer. And at number 4, the Black Dahlia. The Black Dahlia is one of the most infamous cases in LA history. On January 15th of 1947, 22-year-old Elizabeth Short's body was found dead in a vacant lot near a park in LA. The state of her body was the most concerning. Her body was cut in half and all the blood was drained from it. Her body was also perfectly clean, so no evidence was able to be collected from it. There was only one witness that was any help to police. The person claimed they saw a black sedan parked in the area the night before. Since her passing, there have been tons of theories about how or why it happened. And even though so much time has passed, nobody has ever been charged for the crime. Today, the Black Dahlia case remains one of the oldest cold case files in LA, as well as the city's most famous. And at number 3, Prince. Prince is one of the most legendary singers of all time, who made a huge impact on the industry, but his shocking death left many with unanswered questions, and many fans are still convinced we don't know the full story. On April 21st of 2016, he was found unresponsive in an elevator at the Paisley Park studio. Initially, the police marked it as an accident because when he passed away, he had many substances in his system. No charges were filed against anyone, even though many Prince's fans do not believe he would have done this. Years later, there is still no definitive answers, specifically no idea how he got these substances and how he was able to ingest so much. According to sources that knew him very well, he didn't use any of these substances and had no intentions to start. Because there's still so many unanswered questions, the case remains open. And at number 2, George Reeves. In 1959, actor George Reeves was killed under very mysterious circumstances. He made a name for himself playing Superman in the 1950s TV show Adventures of Superman, but his career was cut short after he was killed. At the age of 45, he was killed by a shot to the head. The strange death was then labeled as him taking his own life, but many fans do not believe this could be the case. It was rumored that he was intentionally killed or the death was completely accidental. To add even more strangeness, the death happened while Reeves was with 3 other people, including his fiancée. But even though all those people most likely witnessed what actually happened, none of them ever told. And finally, at number 1, Nicole Brown Simpson. One of the most talked about cases of all time is the case of Nicole Brown Simpson and Ron Goldman. Their death started the case of O.J. Simpson that would become the trial of the century. Nicole Brown Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman were killed outside Simpson's Brentwood, California condo in 1994. After some investigation, it was clear that O.J., her ex-husband, was the prime suspect. His DNA had been found at the crime scene, and witnesses saw him leaving the scene of the crime that night. After an intense and highly publicized trial, he was found not guilty, and with no other suspects considered, the person responsible is still out there. Although many people are convinced that O.J. is the person who did it, and lucky circumstances are the real reason he got off. He was later found guilty of committing the act in a civil lawsuit done by Ron Goldman's family, but because of O.J.'s financial troubles, he has not paid this debt. Years later, O.J. went to prison for robbery and is now out free.
Number 10, Tina Turner. She was simply the best. Better than all of the rest. Tina Turner is considered one of the original queens of rock and roll. Between the early 1950s and the mid 2000s, Tina Turner was ripping her way through country after country, delivering hit after hit. What's Love Got to Do with It? Simply the Best, Acid Queen, and those are just some of the songs that were gifted to us during her time as a solo artist. Before divorcing her evil ex, Ike Turner, the couple would perform together as Ike and Tina. Tina's real name was Anna Mae Bullock, and the name Tina was actually forced on her by Ike as a way of controlling her. As many now know, Ike was an absolutely horrible person to Tina, and he did things that I can't talk about on this channel. Which is why, after so many years of overcoming obstacle after obstacle, it crushed the world when Tina was taken from us at the age of 83 on May 24th in 2023. She will always be remembered as a pure soul with a voice of gold. We had so much respect for this woman. She took a name that was meant to bring her down and turned it into a legend. Number 9, Jerry Springer. Well, our guest today may be a little controversial, but what the heck. Words surely spoken many times by the man that they call Jerry Springer. A name that surely sparks the visual of a fight breaking out on stage and some low-grain cameras capturing it all in front of a live studio audience. The good old days of TV. He hosted The Jerry Springer Show from 1999 to 2016, broadcasting over 1,900 episodes for our viewing pleasure. For anyone that doesn't know, Jerry was known for bringing controversial figures on his show to either discuss or confront the situations surrounding their presence. He brought in men with white cloaks, people who married horses. The spectrum of his guests is wide, which is why his show was just so much fun to watch. It was sad when news broke of his death in 2023 following a long and strenuous battle with pancreatic cancer. Here's hoping that wherever he is, it's just not in the middle of an onstage brawl. Number 8, Angus Cloud. This is the most recent and honestly one of the most devastating entries on this list. Angus portrayed the universally loved character Fez on the show Euphoria, acting as Rue's dealer, aka Zendaya. This past Monday, the Oakland Fire Department was called to his home in California, where he was found deceased, and he had recently been suffering with the loss of his father, which many believe may have led to his passing. Cloud was set to star in several projects in the next few years, as his career had just started thanks to the success of Euphoria. While there is currently no confirmation on the exact cause of his passing, Cloud had a long history with substance control issues and is part of the reason that he delivered such an incredible performance on the show, being able to tap into his real life traumas and use them for his character. Many believe he may have had some type of overdose following the passing of father, but like I said, there is no confirmation. I'm not going to make any jokes here or say anything to make this a light moment. This guy was was an incredible performer, and from what I've been able to read, he was genuinely a wonderful human being. So rest in peace, Angus. Number 7. Sinead O'Connor. Sinead has been serenading people with her voice for a long time, first releasing an album in 1987 called The Lion and the Cobra, and it charted across the globe immediately. Since then, she had a steady career performing in concerts and on talk shows around the world, and in 1992, she made TV history after being banned from Saturday Night Live for standing in front of a live audience and ripping up a photo of the Pope on stage. Now, there was a reason for this, because she was an activist and was simply trying to protest the Catholic Church because they were doing some gross, shady stuff behind the scenes. I'm sorry, did I say were? I meant are. The cause of Sinead passing has not been released to the public, but unfortunately many fans are claiming that it might have something to do with struggles with mental health in recent history, as well as her troubled past with her family. Regardless of why or how it happened, we are very sad to see another talented artist lost in 2023. Number 6. Paul Rubens. Another celebrity that was lost this past week was Mr. Paul Rubens, who many may know as the goofy bike enthusiast Pee Wee Herman. Paul first rose to fame thanks to his character of Pee Wee getting his own movie in 1985, directed by Tim Burton. The movie was so successful that Pee Wee got a morning show on CBS called Pee Wee's Playhouse. Unfortunately, Paul's reputation was slightly tainted in 1991 following an indecent exposure charge after he was feeding the geese at a movie theater. But it was the 90s, and that wasn't even close to the worst thing to happen that year, so he quickly bounced back into the world of acting and starred in movies like Mystery Men and Blow alongside Johnny Depp. Paul had been fighting a long and difficult battle with cancer, something that nobody was aware of until he passed. Much like Chadwick Boseman, it seems like he didn't want his final days to be spent surrounded by people who were prepared for him to go. Instead, he lived his life and he went out on his own terms. So, as someone who grew up with Pee Wee, that one stings. Number 5. Lance Reddick. Good evening, Mr. Wick. Welcome to the Continental. Lance Reddick starred in many TV movies and made small appearances on sitcoms in his early days of acting, but he first broke onto the big screen starring as Anton Lafarge in the 1998 film Great Expectations, which was a modernization of Charles Dickens' classic story of the same name, following a painter in New York City pursuing his childhood love. The film starred Ethan Hawke in the leading role, Gwyneth Paltrow, Hank Azaria, Robert De Niro, but it was Lance that stole the show, and he went on to star in several big-budget projects over the years, eventually landing a role on the hit TV thriller series The Wire as Cedric Daniels. He starred alongside actors like Keanu Reeves, Denzel Washington, Channing Tatum, but the attention was always drawn to him for every moment that he was on screen. Earlier this year, a congestive heart disease took Lance from the world at 61 years old. That's right, the man was only in his 60s. Like, look at him, that was great, good for him. Lucky for us, there was one movie left to be released following Lance's passing called White Men Can't Jump, and it is now available on Disney Plus with Lance starring as one of the main characters, Benji. So if you're missing him, check it out. Number 4. Richard Belzer. In the criminal justice system, the people are represented by two separate yet equally important groups: the police, who investigate crime, and the district attorneys, who prosecute the offenders. These are their stories. Chung-chung! This is the introduction to one of my father's favorite TV shows of all time, Law and Order. Since the day I was brought home, the legendary intro and song was constantly on my screen. I practically grew up with the Special Victims Unit and its team. Richard Belzer played John Munch, a retired detective who returns to the force as a sergeant assigned to the SVU. Richard played Munch for 326 episodes before the show was taken off air in 2016. That didn't mark the end of Richard's acting days, as he went on to star in the popular Robert De Niro pick The Comedian, in which he played a fictionalized version of himself. Fortunately for SVU fans, Richard passed away in February of this year, following years of respiratory and circulatory complications. Looks like crime in the afterlife will never go unpunished again, though. If there is crime, I don't know, do people still do that when they pass away? Number 3. David Crosby. While this last name sounds familiar, David shares no relation to the hockey legend Sidney, which is shocking because he has 6 kids. You would think that one of them would be a hockey player. David Crosby made up a third of the legendary folk rock group Crosby, Stills, Nash, alongside fellow founders Stephen Stills and Graham Nash. After the trio performed together in 1968, they discovered their voices harmonized well and decided that they needed to form a band and keep the good times going. The timing was perfect. David had just been asked to leave the Byrds, Stevens' band Buffalo Springfield had just broken up, and Nash left his band The Hollies the December prior to meeting his bandmates. Eventually, the trio branched out and invited Canadian treasure Neil Young to be the fourth member, performing as Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young. They were even a part of the very first Woodstock Festival in 1969. At the end of a tour in the mid-70s, the band split following some tension behind the scenes. They reconciled for the music and have gotten together a few times over the years, sometimes with Young, sometimes without. Through it all, David gave 100% and the music showcased that effort. Unfortunately, earlier this year, Crosby fell ill with a lung infection and passed in his sleep. Before passing, he had been inducted into the Hall of Fame with his fellow bandmates and will always be remembered for his killer pipes and thick mustache. Number 2, Jeff Beck. Jeff Beck was a British musician who first began rising to stardom in the early 1970s after forming the band Night Shift. Eventually that band broke up, but Beck went on to have an awesome solo career, eventually landing him 8 Grammy Award wins, the first being Best Rock and Roll Instrumental Performance for Escape, a song from the album for Flash that was to accompany the movie of the same name. While his name may not be familiar to you, his guitar licks most certainly are. Jeff has contributed his talent to several top charting songs over the years, including Bon Jovi's Blaze of Glory solo album, and he played lead on Roger Waters' concept album Amused to Death, Red Shoes by Kate Bush, and just so many more. In 1992, his former band The Yardbirds was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and he famously stated that he wasn't proud of a band that kicked him out. Beck continued to work as a solo artist right up until 2020, when he released a new single album in which he collaborated with Johnny Depp to cover John Lennon's song Isolation. The song came out only 1 month after the events of March 2020, so this cover really hit home for a lot of people. Beck passed away from bacterial meningitis infection in January of this year, taking both his talent and his passion with him. And at number 1, Burt Bacharach. My first introduction to Burt was at the age of 8 when I watched the movie Austin Powers International Man of Mystery. Austin and his date/fellow agent are just enjoying dinner on a double-decker bus in London when Austin gestures and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Burt Bacharach." And suddenly there is Burt, playing just a massive piano and singing, "What the world needs now is love, sweet love." Ooh, this moment has lived rent-free in my brain ever since and sparked the random taste in music that I still have to this day. Who's Lizzo? Give me Engelbert Humperdinck any day. Of course, Burt was best known by many people for his musical chops, and it's been said that Burt was one of the most important and influential figures in the pop music industry since the early 1950s. Over the years, Burt collaborated with several well-respected musicians like Tom Jones and Dusty Springfield, and he received 6 Grammys, 3 Academy Awards, and 1 Emmy for his primetime special Singer Presents Burt Bacharach, a live TV taping in which Barbra Streisand appeared and they played music, discussed their careers, and sang their favorite song. Burt was tickling the keys till the day he passed, collaborating with many composers and lyricists over the years. He even composed and arranged an original score for a film called A Boy Called Poe at the age of 88 years old. In February of this year, Burt passed away at the age of 94 and closed his piano lid for good. But between him, David, and Tina, heaven's gonna have some pretty solid music this year.